Thank you so much for joining today's Tridium Talk on UxMedia, an exciting new feature for 4.10. We are greatly appreciative that each and every one of you have joined to learn more about not only Niagara 4.10, but UxMedia. I am very pleased to have Logan Byam on the call with me, who will be performing this presentation with me and will be able to answer any questions that you may or may not have following the presentation. And just as with every Tridium talk, just to lay the ground rules, we will have a question and answer session at the end of this demonstration. And please use the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen to pose any questions which you need answered related to UxMedia, and we will do our best to address them during the presentation. In the event that we are unable to do so, we will answer them offline and we'll post these questions accordingly along with the Tridium Talk demonstration on tridium.com under the events tab. So without further ado, let's jump into Niagara 4.10 because we are getting very close to the release of this very exciting version. And with every release of Niagara, we will ensure to each and every one of you that we are deriving value into the products in the areas or the core tenets of Niagara. And those are visualization, deployment, security, connectivity, certification, and compliance. And of course, with this demonstration, we are focusing more on the visualization aspect of it. But 4.10 includes much more than just UxMedia. And I think as we get closer to the release of 4.10 for the Niagara community, and you start being able to utilize some of these features, I think you'll be able to understand and appreciate some of the significant value that we've put into this release. So without any further ado, let's jump in to why we are here today, which is to discuss UxMedia. So you might ask, what is UxMedia? Which is a great question. It's a new PX media type that is introduced in 4.10, which is going to shift the rendering load from the JACE to the browser. Now, traditionally in Niagara, with HXPX, which is one of the foremost media types in Niagara 4, the JACE has to use its own internal resources to serve up and position that graphical content to the browser. Now, if you can think that if you have a JACE that's a little bit more loaded, so it has more histories, more alarms therein, it might affect the performance of the UI because the JACE has so many other functions that is competing for those valuable engine threads. So what traditionally was happening is that the JACE just didn't have the requisite capacity to get those graphical elements positioned on a page in accordance with modern browser expectations. And what it's going to do by virtue of this new type of rendering, it's going to free up those resources on the JACE so that you can utilize it for other critical functionality. And more importantly, we've now gotten to the point where these PX graphics are being natively rendered in HTML5 JavaScript. So why should you why should you consider UxMedia? Well, frankly speaking, is going to enable an improved end user experience. Instead of having to wait 15, 20 seconds for a graphic to load, an operator or an end user can quickly see the graphical elements that they need to interact with. They can quickly receive those value changes for any critical values that you have to stay attuned to. And then you're getting that faster graphics loading time. So, that does lend into an improved end user experience. But it also just, it's giving you time back to do other essential activities, which is absolutely critical as we continue to drive features into Niagara. We want to save you time. We want to make sure we're doing it the right way. And then in addition to this, for our developer community, it's never been easier to develop a UI in Niagara, because you can use any range of open source tools that you are accustomed with. And then when you think about, just having to make those changes and trying to see whether they in fact are in accordance with your expectations, you don't have to do that full module rebuild anymore. You can just do a refresh in the browser and you can try out that behavior, which is a major time saver for our developer community. Because if you think about having to rebuild that module and then wait for the station to restart, you could be doing plenty of other things. But now with UxMedia, we're giving you that time back so that you can do what you need to do, saving you time and also enabling you to create that indelible end user experience that truly delights your customers. So, should you choose UxMedia? So what I wanted to do going forward now is I want to allow Logan Byam to jump in because I think he'll be able to provide kind of a comprehensive understanding, especially for our developer community, on why it's valuable. And also, why you should choose it and some of the things to look out for as you make that perspective migration. So Logan, can you kind of share with
Thank you, Stephen.
Share with our community members here why you should choose UxMedia?
Absolutely. So yeah, let's talk about some of the topics that you will need to bear in mind when you're making the decision whether to switch to UxMedia. And please let me know if you can't see my slides. So the first is really going to be compatibility. Now, UxMedia is not the default PX Media in 4.10. It's something that you'll need to opt into. And the reason for this is that not every single widget is going to be compatible with UxMedia on day one. So we have included support for the most commonly used widgets that are included out of the box with Niagara, like labels and buttons and pictures and panes. But there are going to be some, some less frequently used widgets that haven't yet gotten support. So if your page is using a widget that isn't yet supported, or if you have your own, say, custom widgets that haven't yet been converted, then that particular PX page will not be compatible with UxMedia right out of the box. Fortunately, you do not have to make this decision for your entire station. PX pages can be converted to UxMedia on an individual basis. So those that are compatible can be converted, and those that are not can not be converted. You can see a list of widgets that are supported in Workbench help, which is quite a lot of them. In addition, there are a couple tools that can help you to determine your page's compatibility with UxMedia. First, the PX editor itself can tell you if your page is compatible by using it's got a built-in validation tool that you can run right from the PX editor. And there are a couple other tools, Audition Mode and a PX Media migration tool that will also be helpful, and I'll show some details about those in just a few minutes. Next, you're going to need to think about performance. And this is going to require kind of a general idea of your customers and the devices they use. So remember that UxMedia takes the work of rendering a PX page and it shifts it from the JS to your user's own device. So the performance benefits you're going to see will depend on the relative strength of those devices. So for example, if your user is using an old phone that's 5 years out of date, and they're talking to a supervisor station that's running on a strong PC, then you're probably not going to see that much of a performance jump because the user device will be slow to render a PX page that the supervisor already had plenty of power to handle. But I think a much more common situation than that will be that your user is using a more recent phone or a desktop computer, a very capable device. And if they're accessing a station that's running on a JACE or Edge 10, then in this case, the JACE would have had to work harder to do the work of rendering the PX page. And by having the user's more powerful device do the rendering work instead, then you're going to see a very significant performance increase. So we think performance will be much better in most cases, but you'll just need to have kind of a general awareness of the relative power of your user's device versus the device that's running the station. The next factor is how heavy your page is on widgets versus how heavy it is on bindings. So remember, it's only the rendering work that gets shifted. So we're talking about the construction and layout of your visual PX page. But the data that is used to populate that page still has to be retrieved. And since it's the Niagara station that has that data, it's the Niagara station that has to do the work of retrieving and providing that data. So imagine if your page has a ton of visual elements to it. Say it's got lots of labels and lines and polygons and panes. The visual, the UI, the layout aspect to it. And if the bindings backing that page are just resolving the orgs to some points, then again you're going to see much better performance because all that visual layout stuff now doesn't have to be handled by your JACE or Edge 10 anymore. But if your PX page consists of, say, a big long 15-second equal query, the JACE still has to run that query because it's the JACE that's the source of the data. So it still takes 15 seconds. So again, widgets versus bindings, just one more factor. Now, real quick, if you are heavily invested in your Baja UI code, so say you've written a ton of your own custom widgets in the existing Java-based Baja UI framework that Workbench uses, those don't convert automatically. UxMedia is basically about implementing Java functionality in JavaScript that can run in the browser. So if that would be a significant expenditure of effort for you, then that may affect when and whether you switch. But if you are mostly using the widgets that are provided out of the box, then your pages are more likely to already be supported. And then finally, just to touch on future directions, Tridium is pretty gung-ho about providing solutions and APIs for bringing the Niagara UI experience into the browser and making use of more native browser functionality like CSS animations and WebSockets and stuff like that. So if that's something that you want for your users as well, then you probably want to consider making the switch. Now let's talk a little bit about how to actually make that switch. I'm going to share my browser. Please let me know if you can't see it. So here I've just pulled up a kind of a test PX view here in the browser. And this is a view that is currently using HX, which means the media type is set to either HX PX media or Workbench PX media. So that means that the rendering is currently being done in the station. And I want to test out how it's going to work in UxMedia. So if I could direct your attention up to the top right, here in the toolbar, there is a new media settings command that will let me see some information about how the media is currently configured. So you can see here, it is currently set to HXPX media. Now, if I just want to see how it looks in UxMedia, what I can do is I can select UxMedia here. And if I check preview only, then that means it's just going to show me how it looks in UxMedia and not actually make any changes to the station. So I click OK, and it refreshes my browser. And here is how it looks in UxMedia. This is how it looks when the browser is doing the work of rendering instead of the JACE. So it looks pretty good to me. So I'm happy with this. And now I can actually come up here and persist the change by, again, selecting UxMedia and unchecking preview only. And when I click OK, now that change is saved to my station, and all of my users will now see this page rendered in UxMedia. Now let's take a look at this other option called audition mode. If I set audition mode to true, then again, up in the top right, I have these new back and forward buttons. And what these do is they'll navigate me back and forth between different PX pages in my station. So I can just go back and forth. Here are all of my PX pages and so on and so forth. Let's find the fun one. Here, this one's fun. And by doing so, it's gonna navigate me to each PX view. I can see how it currently looks, and then come back up here and select my preview, and it will show me how it looks in UxMedia, and I can persist it from there if I want to. Now, one other option that we provide is if I've stepped all the way through an audition mode and I've verified that everything looks good, I don't actually have to convert each view by hand, one by one. In the PX Editor palette, under Tools, we provide this tool called PX Media Migration, and I can just drop that anywhere in my station. And this will automate the entire process of converting all of your PX views. It's all fully documented in Workbench Help, but you can configure here exactly which views and which files that you want to convert and specify how to convert them. So just for example, because I've got root view ord as set to my station root, then it would try and convert every PX view in my station root to UxMedia. But if I change that to, say, my PX pages folder, then it would only convert within that PX pages folder. I can specify what happens if one of the migrations goes wrong. I can choose to abort and do no further migrations. I can set it to skip the file and keep trying to set the rest of the pages, or I can ignore the error and just set the media anyway. This will get invoked as an action. There are two options here. I highly recommend that number one, you back up your whole station before you run this, because it does make changes to the station itself. And number two, if you do the dry run first, it will print out a report of exactly what changes it's going to make. It'll tell you which pages it's going to convert and how, so that you can review that and make sure you understand exactly what's about to get changed before you commit that by running the execute action. All right, so just a few quick developer notes. If you have custom widgets that you would like to add UxMedia support for, we have APIs available to make that possible. Because UxMedia is so new, I want to point out that the API status is development, which means that the new APIs are subject to change in the future, in future versions. But I don't foresee any real major changes to them coming up, so I think it's unlikely that any rugs are going to get pulled out from under you. Just be aware that they are subject to change. Developer documentation is in Workbench. I'd like to draw your attention to the Open Web Technologies section, which provides documentation of all of our APIs. It tells you how to write the code to build these web interfaces. And also under development tools and building JavaScript applications, it will walk you through the process of creating a web module, creating these web views, and building and minifying your JavaScript code. It'll walk you through all of that. In addition, we have some significant updates to our open source tools for building these JavaScript applications, and these are all available and documented at our GitHub page, github.com/Tridium. Now, just to touch on some of the new APIs in 4.10. real quick, BI JavaScript widget. That is an agent registration that would mark a JavaScript widget as being a direct UxMedia re-implementation of a Java widget. So for example, for a button, we have a B button, which is the original Java-based Baja UI widget. And then we have button.js, which is the direct re-implementation of that. And BI JavaScript is how we draw that line. We say button.js is a direct re-implementation of bbutton, so please use that in its place when you're in the browser. UX model is how it provides you information about what your child widgets are. So, for instance, if you're talking about a canvas pane, you put 3 labels on it, it's going to have 3 child widgets. In Java world, those are child slots. In JavaScript world, it's UX model that provides you that information. And if you do have any custom bindings or converters that you have implemented in Java, then we have binding and converter APIs to allow you to provide those JavaScript analogs of those Java classes. And then finally, for Baja UX itself, we have Spandrel. And this is a brand new API in 4.10, and it's intended to help you build JavaScript widget trees. Again, using the canvas pane example, if you put 3 labels on a canvas pane has 3 children. Spandrel takes the work out of building those child widgets and updating them and destroying them when you're done with them. It takes all that work out of it and handles it for you behind the scenes. If you're a React developer, it also has JSX support. JSX is not React. It does not bring React into your application, but it only allows you to use sort of the familiar JSX syntax to define your widget trees. We think it'll be helpful in quite a lot of different situations. Again, this is all documented in the Workbench help, so please open it up in Niagara 4.10 and read all about it. And with that, I will hand it back over to Stephen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Logan. That was absolutely fantastic. You know, as Logan indicated, UxMedia is something that's new and exciting for us. We think that this is going to be kind of the path forward for creating Niagara UIs going into the 21st century. So as you continue to develop against UxMedia, as you try it out in your stations, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. To let us know, how you feel about it. If there were some widgets that you were expecting to be converted that didn't, reach out to us, let us know. We're here for you, and we're always willing to hear feedback from our customers. Your validation is absolutely critical and essential to the success of our product. So if you are interested in viewing this presentation again, you want to learn more about UxMedia next week, the week following, you can always access this Tridium Talk and any previous ones at tridium.com. And you hit the services and support in the toolbar and then the events tab. And you'll get a list of Tridium Talks that you can replay at your own leisure. And in addition to that, we have our Niagara Pro Tip series. We're going to continue to develop these. We've got some great content that James Johnson and Kevin Mamajek have spent some hours developing. And we're continuing to create as much materials as we can to help you get the job done and get it done right. So thank you so much again for joining today's Tridium Talk. I'd like to open it up for any particular questions or anything that we might have. So let's look at some of these. All right. All right, Logan. We had a good question here on Will there be a UxMedia palette? No, you don't need a UxMedia palette. Your existing Baja UI widgets, KitPX, all that stuff will work within UxMedia. All right, Logan, you have a question from AJ Mills. The preserve identities property on the migration tool. Can you provide a little bit more feedback on that?
Sure. So preserve identities is it basically means that the widgets in your PX page are addressable by name in the saved PX file. And the preserve identities option is something that can be turned on or off in the PX editor. Typically, when you're doing the migration, you would want that that option to be the same as the PX file was originally saved. So, like if you are if you're in the practice of using preserve identities when you build your PX pages, then you want to also have that turned on when you do the migration. And if not, then you want to have that turned off. If you're not sure,
right.
then I'm trying to think if you would want to have it off by default or on by default. That aspect of it, if you're not sure whether they were originally saved, then that is addressed in the workbench help.
All right, great. Michael Brady had a question. Once a PX file is converted, will it be able to be edited in the standard editor? Yes. Yes, you can continue to use the PX editor.
Absolutely.
As you have. Yep. Alan Newbold had a question. Will UxMedia allow hooks into online APIs?
If you write a custom JavaScript widget that will run in your browser, you can incorporate any external API calls that you like into that widget. If it runs in the browser, you can use it with UxMedia.
Fantastic. Let's see. Benno would like to know, is the background of JS widgets still be default white in the PX view, even if defined transparent in CSS?
Yes. At the moment, this UxMedia does not make any sort of change to the implementation of web widgets in Workbench. So if you would, if you don't like the ability to change the background color of your web widgets, then I think there's an open story for that. So please vote for it with your tech support rep.
All right. Philip Moody has a question. Just wants some clarification. If he has a supervisor running 410, but his edge 10s are at 4.7, and the graphics are being served from those 4.7 graphics, they can't be UX. That's correct, Philip. In order to utilize UxMedia, you will need to be at 4.10. Unless, of course, your graphics are resident on your supervisor. And if they are indeed resident on your supervisor, then you can convert those graphics accordingly, provided that your supervisor is at 410. All right. Ganesh, is there a tab pane in 4.10?
Yes, there is.
Yes. Yep. Let's see. All right. Let's see here. Leon, fantastic question. Does this Niagara user interface get us closer to PWA compliance? As that would be a fantastic development. I would say probably not directly.
Agreed. I think in order to be PWA, you would essentially have to have an offline Baja script session that could then sync up with the station once you came back online. And at the moment, this isn't functionality we offer.
All right, Tomek had a great question. Are PX files permanently lost after conversion to UxMedia, or is there still a way to recover them? Tomek, one thing that we do recommend is that you invoke that dry run prior to doing it, or you can use the browser preview mode just to see which widgets will convert. I think you should just, as we start to incorporate UxMedia in our stations, let's just ensure that we get in the process of invoking that dry run and then noting which widgets, if any, of course, are unable to be converted to UxMedia. So in addition, now, if you find out, for example, that you're fine, that everything can work, you can always convert them back to HXPX. So using that media migrator, you do have the option to do that as well.
Absolutely. And just one other aspect to that, when you use the PX Media Migrator, you can have it migrate files versus views on components separately. So if you don't want it to touch your actual PX files, that's perfectly fine. You can just have it migrate the actual PX views that are resident in the component space, and then your PX files would be untouched. Either way, we strongly recommend that you back your station up first before you make any of these changes, because the changes itself are irrevocable.
All right. Will there be a replacement for PX include? We still are supporting PX includes, and you can utilize them with UxMedia. All right, Aaron, Rickle, any new features coming with the new versions of the widgets? We do not have any particular widgets that are scheduled to be incorporated into 4.10, and that follows the same for 4.11. Instead, UxMedia will kind of do the heavy lifting to kind of change the manner in which some of our existing widgets render within a browser. All right. Amol asks, can we include an iframe?
You can. There are a couple options that are open to you. You could write a custom widget that had an iframe in it. You could use a web browser widget, which basically winds up being implemented as an iframe. The web browser widget is in the, I think it's in the Workbench palette. And either way, you will want to take a look at the HTTP header providers section of the web service, because the content security policy will probably need to be configured to allow you to embed iframes to particular URLs. So just sort of be aware of that aspect to it. But yes, iframes work a couple of different ways.
All right, Michael had a question, a clarification question. When a view is converted as opposed to a file, the J still has to do the conversion on the fly each time the page is viewed in the browser.
No. When you, so that for any particular PX graphic, the media type can be specified either in the file itself or as part of the PX view that's configured in the in the component space. And if when you're viewing a PX graphic as a view on a component, it's the media type that's in the component space that will win. It will use that one. But there is when either one is set to UxMedia, then the JSON no longer has to do the conversion. Sort of the way it works under the hood is it downloads the raw PX data, and the conversion from the PX data to the widget tree is handled in the browser itself.
All right, let's see.
Yep.
All right, AJ Mills, let's see, you had a follow-up. You said you've experienced slow loading times with the tab pane, where each tab contains a component grid. You were wondering whether you can expect that this is more to do with the rendering or all the tabs or the bindings and the components on the grids. It's a bit difficult to say without having access to that PX page. AJ, if you're having any issues, we certainly recommend that you reach out to tech support to kind of show them exactly what you've been experiencing, and then they can pass those findings on to us for further investigation. All right, will UxMedia have any effect on the functionality of virtual PX on demand? No, we have not changed anything related to virtual PX on demand.
Yeah, that's right. I would have to go back and verify this, but I am pretty sure that the way it will work is the same way it works now, because the raw PX data that will be generated by virtual PX on demand would get passed to the browser unchanged, and then again the browser would do the work of converting that raw PX data to the actual PX graphic.
All right, Fleming underscore AES, is the long-term goal to eliminate PX presentation completely? You know, PX files are so inherent to Niagara in the Niagara framework that at the moment we do not have any prospective replacement for PX files. We will continue to support them and expect that they will operate as expected going forward in 4.10. All right, Deborah. While viewing PX pages in a browser, the facets of a generic field editor contain a grid pane or being truncated. We'd have to get the specific details on that one, Deborah. It may be that something associated with the manner in which your PX page has been configured. But if you reach out to tech support, they'll be able to provide an indication of whether that specific defect has been fixed.
I'd like to answer for Jason, who asks if there's a list of supported widgets. Yes, there is. In Workbench Help, there is a section just for UxMedia, and that does include a list of supported widgets. And that's also a great starting place for documentation on UxMedia itself.
Let's see. Ooh, Michael Brady. Are there any plans in the future to include PHP functionality in the web UI? Interesting. So at the moment, we do not have that specifically tied to any prospective Niagara release. But if this is something that you feel would be of value, please feel free to reach out to either your sales associate or tech support to indicate why this is needed, and we'll certainly jump on that if it indeed is something that you feel will be of value to the community? All right, there's several questions on WebWire Sheet. There's a bunch of them actually. So WebWire Sheet is not in 4.10. We know that's something that is desperately needed, and we've heard your feedback, and we're gonna address it. So nothing to share yet on WebWire Sheet at the moment, but that's something that we agree is desperately needed, and it's something that we'll get moving on. All right, Leon. Presumably, the specification of UxMedia forces the page to be rendered by whichever browser is considered default by the host? ?
The page would be rendered by whichever browser you were using. You would, if you had a preference between Edge or Chrome, you could just simply open up, say you wanted to use Chrome, just open up Chrome and access your station. And then all of your UxMedia pages will be rendered in your browser of choice.
Brian, yes, the history table will load using UxMedia. Got a bunch of ones coming in here. All right, well, if UxMedia improve the performance of charts, Duncan, if they are embedded on a PX view and the PX view is being served up by Jace, absolutely. Let's see. Michael, good question. Will CSS overrides still work in UX render views?
So with the, if you write a custom widget, you can absolutely have it depend on a custom CSS file, and use CSS to style one of your custom widgets however you like. If you would like to apply CSS styling to the built-in Niagara widgets, then that can be done by creating a custom theme. And themes are documented in Workbench help. I want to say Open Web Technologies. I can't remember exactly where it is off the top of my head, but it's under Doc Developer.
Right. Probably have time for about one or two more. Let's see. Anonymous attendee. He asked, are there any plans regarding the support of TypeScript?
Not at the moment. If that is something that would be helpful to you, then again, please feel free to reach out through your sales channel or tech support and vote for that particular feature. If you would like to use TypeScript in your own custom web module, then that actually you can do. Grunt Niagara on our GitHub page is a great place to start. And if you would like to add TypeScript into your build process from there, that is absolutely doable.
All right. There's been a couple, this is the last one we'll address. There's been a couple questions on 4.10's prospective release date, as well as some of the release notes. If you have a Niagara community account, I encourage you to log in and search Niagara 4.10 therein, and you will have an indication of which release documents we have posted, and you'll be able to see a list of defect fixes in 4.10. So I encourage you to take a look at that site. And with that, we are officially at time here. I want to thank each and every one of you for participating today. And thanks to Logan for doing this demonstration as well. As we said, please visit Tridium.com. Take a look at the events tab for a recorded version of this demonstration, as well as any other previous Tridium talk. And happy Thursday, everyone. Take care.